Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, everyone. Can you all see me? Can you hear me? Somebody raise a hand.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you so much for acknowledging that. Okay, thank you all very much for joining today. Today is a very auspicious day, as we all know. It's our Guru Maharaj's 75th Vyasa Puja. My name is Ananta Vijay Das. Most of you actually know me. I'm going to be your host for this evening. And obviously, we are doing this program over the Zoom today because of the circumstances that we're all living in due to coronavirus. Otherwise, I'm sure we would have been all there at the manor as usual every year in that room and celebrating today Guru Maharaj's 75th Vyasa Puja. But nevertheless, whatever Krishna desires, we have the technology and we can make the best of it. So I'm going to start off by begging your mercy, your blessings, by saying if I make any mistakes during the course of the evening today due to technology, or if I commit any offenses, please do forgive me. I'm going to do my level best. The team behind this, who has put up this program as well, has worked very hard. And we're going to try and make sure everything runs nice and smooth. So, Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Charuswami Iti Namine. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shanyavadi Pashyatya Tishitarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet, all my dear Vaishnavas, my dear Guru Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada, and the Lordships. Hare Krishna. So I'm going to start off with giving you the outline of today's evening. You can all see my screen, I believe. So today's evening, basically, we're going to start off with introductions, which I've already done so 2 minutes ago. Followed by, we have Savana Radhika Mataji, who is going to recite Guru Ashtakam. Then we have some guest speakers from Manor and a few other exalted devotees who is going to address us. And then we have the founder Acharya video, which we would like to play and share with you. Varsharani Mataji is going to recite, or she's going to go through the meaning of what Vyasa Puja is all about. I'm sure most of us know that, but she's actually got a very detailed one, so I look forward to hearing from her. Kamlesh Krishna Prabhu is going to recite Guru Maharaj's offering. And then from there, we will open up the floor for disciples to do the offerings as well. Now, here is a bit of a tricky part because obviously we're running this event on the Zoom. What I would like is if you can put your name on the chat or just raise your hand, and I'll make a note of it who would like to do the offering, and I'll make sure at that point, at the right time, I'll unmute your microphone as well. So until then, please try and make sure your microphones are muted so that there's less disturbances and we don't have any disruptions anywhere. Followed by, we will recite Srila Bhakti Charu Swami Maharaj's Ashtakam as well. And then after that, we'll do Pushpanjali. Then again, we'll open up the floor for any devotees who would like to share their altar, their videos, when we're doing the Bhoga offerings. Again, I would require your cooperation when we get to that point. If you want to send me your name on the chat or raise your hand, and I'll make sure I'll unmute your mic. And obviously you can show your video as well. Then we will do Guru Puja, and at the end we will have some thank yous and the close of the event. Now, because there's so many things to go through today, and with a very limited time that we have, we're actually going to continue this on Saturday, so that any devotees who haven't had an opportunity to do the offerings, they may do so on Saturday. So make a note of this. We're going to continue this part 2 on Saturday, 19 September, between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. UK time. And for this, we'll be sending out a new meeting ID as well. It is not going to be exactly the one we're using today, but we will be sending out a new one. So look out for that. So without any further kind of ado, I'm going to request Her Grace Sarvana Radhika Mataji to recite the Guru Ashtaka prayers. So Mataji, if you can unmute your microphone from your end, or I can do it from here.
Hare Krishna. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mataji, we can hear you.
Centers. What supposed to do? ইন্দ্রদিনে তো রাজা কিছু চেঞ্জ হয় কিচ্ছু তো মানে ডেইলি একটা চেঞ্জ হইতেছে
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. That was wonderful, wonderful kirtan. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I need to thank our special kirtaniers. We've got Dharma,
Haribol.
we've got Vani Priya, and we've got Lalita. And Baladev did some Madanga playing. He's just there. And we've got some other devotees here too. So thank you very much for the service. It was
You've got a wonderful, wonderful devotees, the full team of devotees there. Wonderful. Mataji, would you like to read the translation as well, please, for me?
Sure. Okay. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. Just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish, the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments, the spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Sri, Sri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzed as that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavat Prasad, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert in assisting the gopis, who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavan. I offer my most humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he is the confidential servitor of the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Sri Hari Krishna. By the grace of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master. At least 3 times a day, I should offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. And we offer our obeisances to you all as well. Thank you for arranging this.
Thank you so much, Grace Radhika Mataji ki jai. Thank you once again. So let's move on to the next part of our program. So we will have a few guest speakers with us this evening. And on my list here, I have Her Grace Vishaka Mataji. She is the temple president of Manor, which I'm sure everybody knows her. So I'm going to give her a little bit of introduction of herself. As a photographer, Vishaka Devi Dasi traveled with and photographs His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and his students in India, Europe, and United States. As a writer, she wrote numerous back-to-Godhead magazines, articles, as well as 5 books, most recently the award-winning, best-selling memoir, 5 years, 11 months, and Lifetime of Unexpected Love. Vishaka Mataji also assists her husband, Yadubara Das, in making documentary films, most recently the 90-minute award-winning Hare Krishna, the mantra, the movement, and the Swami who started it all. With her appointment as a temple president here at Bhaktivedanta Manor in January 2020, she has quickly won the hearts of all devotees during these exceptionally challenging times. Thank you very much. Vishaka Mataji, you are unmuted. It's all yours.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you for that too kind introduction. Om Gyanata Marandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare. Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo. Hare Krishna. Can you hear me all right? The volume's all right?
Yes, Mataji.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be amongst you on this very auspicious day, the 75th Vyasa Puja of His Holiness Srila Bhakti Charu Swami, whom we miss very much. So we can use this time especially to celebrate his extraordinary qualities and his extraordinary history in Srila Prabhupada's Hare Krishna movement. Just this morning at the temple, they played a couple of lectures that he gave. And just from those lectures, we can understand his deep realization of Krishna consciousness, of Prabhupada's teachings. And also we can appreciate his extraordinary faith in those teachings and in Srila Prabhupada himself. From the very beginning, when he met Prabhupada, he was immediately, his transcendental Vaishnava qualities were evoked. And he had all this time and all these years of serving Srila Prabhupada, his record was truly unblemished, completely dedicating himself to Prabhupada's mission. Something quite unique, especially in this very difficult age.
Cheese and tomato. Thanks.
So Bhakti Charu Swami very often evoked Prabhupada's own history. He was very much immersed in Prabhupada's own history. And he used the example of Srila Prabhupada to encourage all of us to stay within Prabhupada's movement. Bhakti Charu Swami would emphasize that Prabhupada had so many challenges during his preaching efforts, both in India and certainly after he left India. There were so many obstacles, so many setbacks. Prabhupada dealt with politics. He dealt with followers who misunderstood or misapplied his teachings. He dealt with followers who were weak in different ways, and yet Prabhupada persisted through all of these things. Such a glorious example that Bhakti Charu Swami repeatedly put before us so that we could take inspiration from them, as Bhakti Charu Swami himself took so much inspiration from Prabhupada's example in these ways. This idea of persisting, never giving up, always being rooted in the desires of one's Guru Maharaj. This is what Bhakti Charu Swami exemplified. And this is what he very much wanted to evoke in both his followers and throughout ISKCON. He did not really make so much distinction, his followers, the followers of other spiritual masters, but he wanted us all to be united in Prabhupada's house, to find unity amongst diversity. This was Prabhupada's also mission, and Bhakti Charu Swami rose to that occasion time and time again to try to bring harmony amongst Prabhupada's followers so that Prabhupada's mission would be unimpeded by different personalities and different ideas how to achieve Prabhupada's goals. So in this way, we relish his memory, we rejoice in his example, and we try to follow that example. He touched the lives of so many of us, of course, all of you as his followers, but also those who weren't his followers. As his god sister, I was so impressed by his qualities, by his talent, his singing was extraordinary. After his departure, we had a memorial event for him, and I was very moved by the memories of Bhakti Chaitanya Swami. Bhakti Chaitanya Swami was on the GBC with Bhakti Charu Swami, and he recited how, he remembered how one year Bhakti Charu Swami was given the responsibility of chairing the GBC meetings. And this is not an easy thing to do because you have very forceful personalities, let us say, on the GBC. And it takes somebody with a forceful personality to give order to the meetings and to give it some fluidity and to accomplish the goals of the meeting. And Bhakti Chaitanya Swami thought that Bhakti True Swami did not have the right personality for that service. We all know Bhakti True Swami is a gentleman, he's a soft-hearted, kind-hearted person. And yet he took this responsibility to chair the GBC meetings. And much to the astonishment of Bhakti Chaitanya Swami, for Krishna's service, Bhakti True Swami altered his personality so that he could take charge of these rather forceful personalities on the GBC and do an excellent job in chairing the GBC meetings. So it really, for me, it really showed how Maharaj's dedication to Prabhupada's mission enabled him to transcend his own innate personality to do this service successfully, because it was necessary at the time. It was an important service. It had been given to him, and he performed it with excellence. So what an extraordinary example for all of us. Our hearts have been touched, and he continues to touch our hearts. And he does that through his lectures that we can hear, through his beautiful kirtans, through his book, and also through his followers, through all of you. So we look to all of you to carry on Maharaj's mission and mood, which is the mission and mood of Srila Prabhupada. And it's so important for the growth of Lord Chaitanya's movement and the growth of all of us individually as well. So let us relish and rejoice in his memory, and let us rise together to push on this movement with enthusiasm and confidence and patience, just as Maharaj did. And especially, let us not be set back by obstacles, that whatever comes in our way, know that Krishna's will is there, Prabhupada's will is there, Bhakti True Swami's will is there, and he wants us to overcome differences and obstacles so that we can unitedly please Srila Prabhupada. So thank you so much for allowing me to speak just a few words. As I say, I'm very honored to be with you, and I take great solace and strength in all of your enthusiasm for his teachings and for remembering him and keeping him very much present in your lives and in the lives of all of us as a beautiful example to follow, to take inspiration from, and to take shelter of. Hare Krishna. All glorious to His Holiness Bhakti True Swami. All glorious to Srila Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Vishaka Mataji Ki Jai. Thank you very much for giving your special, precious time and glorifying, Guru Maharaj and sharing some insights about our Guru Maharaj. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Next, I would like to invite His Grace Prabhu Prabhu. Prabhu Prabhu, are you able to unmute yourself? Can you hear me, Prabhu Prabhu? Okay. I don't think I see him online on the participants list. He was there earlier on here. Okay, let's give him some more time. Maybe might be some technical difficulties. He's managed to connect in a little while. So may I ask His Grace Pradyumna Prabhu to address us?
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for joining us.
Thank you so much for the invitation, and really honored to be with everyone this evening. I have a little offering that I'd like to share, both on something for myself, but also as a collective from ISKCON Leicester congregation. Om Jnanatirmirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Vansha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha. Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Dearest Bhakti Churu Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. All glories to your divine grace. Your affection upon me earns me this blessed opportunity to glorify you on this auspicious day. This Sangha of disciples, friends, and followers is filled with an intensity of love, and it brings comfort and offers upliftment as we battle through our feelings of separation to enter the celebration of your appearance in this world. Your purpose of appearance is glorified in your life of service to Srila Prabhupada. The intimacy you attained, becoming an attendant, close and immediate, serving as an assistant of His divine grace. In doing so, you captured the secret of success by giving your every breath to the service of Guru. Indeed, you are the exemplar disciple, the standard of dedicating life and soul, standing firm and bold in placing our founder Acharya at the center of all endeavor. Today is very much a day of gratitude, an expression of our indebtedness for the many impressions you have left upon our lives. You nurtured us with much love and encouragement. Your graceful exchange, deliberate and attentive to each person for whom you stopped and acknowledged. And when you heard of the preaching news, a new project, or the progression of even something small, you gave it focus and enthused those involved to grow deeper. You blessed them with success. How much this has been so for us here in Leicester. From your first visit, you took time for every devotee. When I mentioned in the invitation that we only have a small house as a temple, you remarked, "It's not the small house I'm coming to see. I want to be with you and the devotees." And when you came, you left us with hope. Just do your best and Krishna will bless you. Srila Prabhupada is already blessing you. These are words that fueled and inspired, moved and activated progression. And the words, "Anything I can do for you, just call me." You showered us with love, that small group of devotees in that small house. And with that, the group is a little bigger and in a bigger house. But now you are beyond this world and we are struck by lamentation. We just yearn to keep hearing your voice. And so we remind ourselves of your words, your blessings, and we will certainly call you in prayer and through remembrance. We continue to aspire after your footprints, the dust of which will perfect our attempt at devotional service. I pray that you continue to shelter me and allow me to sit at your lotus feet in service to the wonderful gems of your disciples in whom you have invested here in Leicester. And today, as they sit before you with feelings of deep separation, please allow me to serve and care for them. Just like when I had the honor to introduce them to you in your first visits to Leicester, allow me, for my purification, to call out the beautiful names of those who continue your inspiration here in Leicester, the beautiful names that you bless them with, and the names by which I continue to call and to serve and remember you through. Nikalesh Krishnadas, Sham Mohini Radhika Mataji, Vaishnav Pran Prabhu, Jayati Radhika Mataji, Priyadarshan Prabhu and Sital Mataji, Sachitanaya Prabhu and Chandni Mataji, Brajraj Krishna Prabhu, Rakshita Radhika Mataji, Srimati Priya Mataji, Mrilanini Radhika Mataji, Harikanta Mataji, Kirti Prada Mataji, Manohar Govinda Prabhu, Padmagandha Mataji, Manju Bhashini Mataji, Karunamoy Krishna Prabhu, Shubha Prada Mataji, Jayesh Prabhu, and Tulsi Mataji, Nayan Prabhu. I will also remember you by remembering the kindness and leadership offered to our Leicester project by His Grace Rameshwar Prabhu. His loss is also very significant for us. But in this list, let me honor your dedicated servant, an honorary Leicester devotee, helping us to realize the inspiration you have instilled, His Grace Prashan Prabhu and Harsharana Mataji. And by calling all of their names, I wish to call out to you and remember your affection for me. Dearest Maharaj, you have touched this small place of Leicester in such a significant way. May we continue to live your inspiration and through service honor you, ever grateful for your benediction. All glories to you, dearest Bhakti True Maharaj, your servant. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, thank you so much for your heartfelt offering. I do have to apologize. I was supposed to give you a little bit of introduction by yourself, but I completely missed out on that. So please accept my apologies. I'd like to take the opportunity to read it out, though. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people do know about yourself, but Pradyumna Prabhu has, for the last 10 years, been serving as a president of ISKCON Leicester, leading the development of the new center at the heart of the city. Pradyumna Prabhu is a highly experienced Bhagavad Gita teacher. He also works as a learning and a development consultant, providing leadership and management solutions to a range of corporate organizations. Thank you very much, Prabhu, for being with us and giving us your heartfelt offering once again. Hare Krishna. Next, I would like to invite His Grace Pragosh Prabhu. I'm going to unmute yourself from my end. Hare Krishna Prabhu, can you hear me?
Hare Krishna, I can, thank you.
Okay, so I just want to again read out a little bit about yourself so that everybody knows your profile. An active contributor to ISKCON's website, doneworks.com, and the driving force behind it. Pragosha Das is also a GBC member. He began in 1997 as a deputy GBC member, but his ability to rise to a challenge, his quick thinking, his creativity, and good sense of humor were all noted by the GBC body, and he became a full GBC member in 2001. His areas of responsibility cover some of the world's colder climates, the Channel Islands, Denmark, England, the Faroe Islands, Iceland, Ireland, Northern Ireland, Norway, Scotland, Sweden, and Wales. Additionally, Pragosha Das assists as co-zonal secretary for ISKCON's headquarters in Mayapur, West Bengal, India. The GBC meetings in which current issues and the future of Hare Krishna movement are discussed are full of gravity. However, with great determination and flair, Pragosha Das puts together a drama every year to celebrate the lighter side of spiritual life, an amazing feat for someone already fully engaged in devotional service. Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna and Anta Vijay Prabhu, thank you very much for that introduction. Always a little embarrassing to hear it I was much happier listening to the previous offerings, and I would like to very much thank Prajamna Prabhu for his very nice offering. Thank you, Prabhu. It was very nice listening to it. First, I'd like to offer my obeisances to all the devotees. Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. And also to offer my obeisances to the absolutely wonderful His Holiness Bhakti True Swami Maharaj, who was, for me, he was kind of everything. He was like a father, a big brother, a friend, a Shiksha Guru, literally everything. And his association was always so beautiful, so sweet, so comforting and reassuring in all of my times with him. You mentioned in that introduction about Dandavats, and this morning we put up on Dandavats a video of Bhakti True Maharaj, and the title of that video was Srila Prabhupada Taught Us How to Overcome Death. And I think for all of us, that was such a transformational piece of information and knowledge that we would have received when we first came in contact with the Hare Krishna movement and the Hare Krishna devotees. And now, of course, we continue to distribute that to everybody who still hasn't received that incredible transformational information that we are not these material bodies, we are eternal spiritual beings. And Bhakti True Maharaj, in the context of that, and in the context of ISKCON being the foremost organization movement for disseminating that information, was so critically aware of how important it was for this movement to stay together, united, and to fulfill Srila Prabhupada's request about cooperating together so as that the movement can continue. So someone like Bhakti True Maharaj, for me, it indicates, because of that, and I'll go on to something else about him, but because of that alone, you could argue that he has been the single most biggest loss in terms of his Vapu presence in the Hare Krishna movement since Srila Prabhupada. I know on occasions like this, that might be an easy thing to say, or a nice thing to say, or a relevant thing to say, but I really do feel that to be the case, that his loss is just, absolutely ginormous in the context of ISKCON and holding it together. And actually, from that point of view, to all of you who are listening, and all of you who are followers and disciples of Bhakti True Maharaj, it would be a request to everybody to really hold on to his lotus feet in that context of understanding that key vital principle, and help the whole Hare Krishna movement globally to drill down and further realize that understanding of the importance of keeping ISKCON together. And it's no easy business, because it's the first time that we have in the history of Vaishnavism, as far as I'm aware, where we have a multi-guru society operating under a governing board created by Srila Prabhupada. That's never really happened before. It's always been each guru would have their own movement and their own math like that, and they'd be the sole person in charge. So it's in that sense, since Srila Prabhupada created ISKCON, and particularly since he left, it's a new departure, and it was something that Bhakti True Maharaj was so critically aware of. And I think it was also referenced by Prajamna Prabhu. So yeah, just an appeal to really understand the importance of that for the future of Srila Prabhupada's movement. I also want to talk though, and I won't be too long, but I do want to talk about Bhakti True Maharaj, his personality, his person, my kind of relationship with him, because he is such an exalted Vaishnav in so many ways, so many ways, in terms of his learning, in terms of his practice of Krishna consciousness.
How do I make it, please? How do I go?
In terms of his achievements, his preaching achievements, etc. He excelled in all of these things. But he was just such a sweet person, just on a one-to-one. He was just a normal, sweet person. And we all know him as being the perfect Vaishnava gentleman. And I was saying on an earlier call today that he literally could just, we have that phrase in English, light up a room by just entering it. And that was always my impression of him. And I was referencing the verse in the Bhagavad Gita where Arjuna asked Krishna, you know, what are the symptoms of someone whose consciousness is merged in transcendence? And it talks about how do they speak, you know, what's their language, how do they sit, and also how do they walk. And that particular point, I always thought of Bhakti True Maharaj. Whenever I saw him, I thought of that verse in the Bhagavad Gita. That alone is an incredible benefit to be able to see a person and be immediately reminded of the Bhagavad Gita. But I always thought of that because Maharaj, when he would come into a room, you know, he was so elegant in how he held himself effortlessly and so graceful. And he would literally, you felt he wasn't walking, you felt he was like on a conveyor, at the bottom of his dhoti, there was some kind of conveyor belt that he would just glide and hover across the room. And it was just seeing that, experiencing that, it was pretty clear to me, you know, that he was just, that alone indicated how special a person that he actually was. And those instant impressions that we have in English, we say the first impressions are lasting. So those instant impressions are very significant. And it seems to have also been the case when Bhakti True Maharaj first met Srila Prabhupada, because at their first meeting, my understanding is that Srila Prabhupada, he had so much faith, so much confidence in Maharaj that he entrusted him with the absolutely enormous task of translating all of Srila Prabhupada's books into Bengali. And, you know, I can't imagine, can any of us imagine, you know, translating so many books, so many pages, so many transcripts, etc. It's a real huge undertaking. But Maharaj, he honored that and he fulfilled it, completed that huge service, and very appropriately did so on the centennial, Srila Prabhupada's centennial year celebrations. And as big, you know, as big and as extraordinary as an achievement like that, you know, we look through our lives and we see different things that we may have done. And, you know, it always takes, in this material world, I often use the example, it's like trying to swim through sweet rice. You know, it's really hard to move the material energy. So anything that we do, you know, it is laudable, but something like that, such a huge achievement. But that was just one of many, and we know, and I don't want to go through a list here of all the extraordinary achievements that Bhakti True Maharaj was responsible for throughout his life, and particularly his life since he met Srila Prabhupada. One, because there's so many, and two, I'm sure that you're aware of all of them being his followers and his disciples like that. But something to mention, being very real to me, was a relatively recent event when myself and Bhakti True Maharaj and one or two others were given the service of trying to secure or resecure our property, one of our biggest properties in the world, in New York, in Brooklyn in New York. And when you think about it, it's so significant. It was such an iconic place simply because obviously it's the first place that Srila Prabhupada landed when he left India, was New York City. So such an iconic, such an important location for us. And basically we had more or less lost that property. And we were given that task of trying to retrieve it and resecure it. And I just remember there were many, many twists and turns in that pastime. But there was just one occasion when the people who were resistant, if not outright hostile, to ISKCON and to ISKCON, you know, owning that property, etc. They were all gathered in one location, and Bhakti True Maharaj was the one who was given the responsibility of basically trying to convince them that they should do the right thing. And going back to my reference to him being a real Vaishnava gentleman, this wasn't the arena, or this wasn't the venue, this wasn't the circumstance, this wasn't the atmosphere that you would expect or that you would want to expose somebody who is as much of a Vaishnava gentleman as Bhakti True Maharaj was, such a soft-hearted person. Your tendency always would be to sort of put a protective arm around Bhakti True Maharaj, not to sort of put him out into vulnerable and difficult situations. But he entered that room, and it very much comes in the context of, you know, whatever is for the service of Krishna and for Srila Prabhupada and for Srila Prabhupada's ISKCON, regardless of the circumstances, Bhakti True Maharaj would stand up and he would perform that service, regardless of the risks and dangers to himself. So he walked into that room, hostile, challenging, and he literally just stood everybody down. His authority in his voice, but mostly the authority that came with his total conviction and total belief in understanding what was right from Srila Prabhupada's perspective, what would be the right thing to do. And if Srila Prabhupada was here present now, what he would be expecting somebody like Bhakti True Maharaj to do, and what he would be expecting him to say, he would be expecting him to instruct the audience in front of him. And Maharaj was brilliant. He was brilliant. He spoke, and as I say, in such an authoritative way, such a convincing way. And then he went into a kirtan. He led a kirtan. And I could kind of visibly see in the room, as he was leading that kirtan, that people's hearts were melting. And the opposition and the hostility was just melting away. And you kind of got the impression in the room that people were thinking, wow, you know, what was I thinking of? How did I ever get myself into this position where we have such a wonderful sadhu who is clearly telling us it's the wrong thing to do? So it was a really kind of amazing experience for me to see the power of that purity and the power of that conviction to Guru and Krishna. It was actually a wonderful thing. Another thing I'd just like to mention about Maharaj is that, and you know, I'll speak very personally, something that is something that has always been something that I've needed to work on in my spiritual life, and maybe some of you can relate to it. We understand that the Super Soul is dwelling in the hearts of everyone, including ourselves. So therefore he is observing, Krishna is observing not just our actions, but our thoughts. Everything are being observed by Krishna. But that doesn't mean it's still not a challenge to fulfill Srila Prabhupada's statement that he made on numerous occasions about devotees, where he basically said that devotees don't have private lives. Their public life and their private life are the same. There is no difference between the two. And I would say that in my life of associating with devotees, that there will be nobody who would have fulfilled that ideal as stated by Srila Prabhupada than Bhakti True Maharaj. There was just never a difference between, of course I wasn't with him 24/7, but you just know when literally there is no difference between their public persona and their private persona. So again, that was for me a very, something that I still can learn from Maharaj as my devotional life continues. So yeah, from that to more light-hearted moments with Maharaj, that to some degree we may say that you know, the days like this is light-heartedness what is required. But I will just express one experience with Maharaj in Mayapur, where I used to introduce the festival, the Mayapur festival, and the raising of the flag to commence the festival each year. And Maharaj used to be, as one of the senior devotees, and obviously a Mayapur GBC, and not just what to speak of also being from Bengal, he usually would address the audience at those types of occasions. So we were sort of sitting, waiting for the event to get underway. And Maharaj said to me, "Pragosh, I hope you have some good jokes for us today." You know, when I'm introducing the different speakers and all of that kind of thing. And I said to him, I says, "Well, Maharaj, let me tell you, did you ever hear the one about the Irishman, the Englishman, and the Indian man?" And Maharaj said, "No." And I said, "Well, they were all in a boat one time, and the boat ran into trouble. And as a result, they had to throw something out of the boat. So the conclusion was that they would throw something to reduce the weight. So they would throw something out of the boat that that they had too much of, that each of them had too much of in their own country. So that was the criteria. So the Irishman, he threw out a whole load of crates of beer because there's too much beer in Ireland, too much alcohol. The Indian man, he had a massive wok of curry. So the Indian man threw out this massive wok of curry out of the boat. And then the Englishman's turn. And the Englishman turned around.
I think he's going to kill me. Well, he's not.
Oh, okay, I don't know if that was faithful. I haven't got to the punchline yet.
Apologies, Prabhu. I'm keeping tab on the participants and trying to mute them as soon as I hear them interrupting.
No, that's okay. That's okay. It just was funny that they were all laughing. But anyway, it came to the Englishman's turn. And the Englishman turned around and he threw out the Irishman out of the boat and he threw the man out of the boat. So back to True Marsh, he chuckled at that. And then he went up to speak. A little bit later, he went up to speak to the audience. And he made some nice philosophical points. And when he came back to me, he said, yeah, Pragosh, I was finding that a little...
Oh dear, yeah, I could.
He said, I was finding that a little bit funny, but it was also pretty corny. Corny, just in case anyone's not aware, the word corny means pretty bad joke, basically. So then Marsh said, he turned to me and he said, the real thing about that joke, the realization I've had as a result of it, is that you're the GBC for the UK. I travel to the UK on many occasions. I'm there all the time. And he said to me, the moral of that joke is we need to preach more in the UK, and we need to convince the English and the Irish and the Indians that they are not these bodies and that they will never see the relevance of a joke like that in the future, because they will understand that they're all eternal spirits, souls, and they're all eternal servants of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And I just remember thinking that even in light-hearted moments such as that with Bhakti Trumarsh, he was always so quick to pull things back to the core issues, the most important issues that face every single one of us as devotees, and of course face every single one of the jivas traveling and lost in this material universe, by giving them the message of Krishna consciousness. And he lived his life doing that. I never ever saw an occasion where he wasn't trying to give the message of Krishna consciousness on whatever level, depending on the audience that was in front of him, whether it was a hostile audience in Brooklyn in New York, or a loving audience in Mayapur, or an absolutely unknown audience in some venue around the world. He was always able to address that audience in such a way that they move forward to whatever degree, but they move forward with their spiritual life. So today, it's a great day for remembering Maharaj, although I'd have to say that I don't think I've forgotten him for one single day since he left on July the 4th. But I know that he's still with us in spirit. And I also know philosophically that we will all be together again, serving Krishna somewhere again in the spiritual world at some point in the future. We're all eternal spiritual beings. We all have eternal relationships based on the central relationship that we all have with Lord Krishna. And that means that we will all serve together again in a Vapu form sometime in the future. For now, there's an interruption in that Vapu association, but we can take so much solace and so much inspiration from Maharaj's Vani, and also all the remembrances of Maharaj that we're all experiencing today from different devotees. So thank you all very much for listening, and let me just do a big all glories to His Holiness Bhakti Tiru Swami Maharaj Ki Jai. Hare Krishna.